Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwanitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Hey, welcome back to Between the Sheets. We have another exciting topic today and another exciting guest. I have Elise Rogers here today, who is a certified holistic sexuality educator and embodied intimacy and relationship coach. She is celebrated for her warm and approachable style. Her holistic and embodied approach to education and coaching is deeply rooted in her own pain to purpose journey. Lauren brings an empathetic and non-judgmental, we like that here on the pod, approach, offering practical tools that empower her clients to take ownership of their pleasure and grow in confidence and connection. She is known for creating a shame-free space where she invites individuals and couples to navigate complex topics like long-term partnerships, consensual non-monogamy, life transitions, purity culture, and all the LGBTQA issues. Welcome.
Thank you. It's such a delight always to hear that bio because, as it says in there, this is such a pain to purpose story. And this was not always me. It's almost like a giggle comes out of my body of, look at her now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my story too. It's so interesting. As I was reading over all of your bio and looking at your website and stuff, preparing for today, I was like, we have a similar backgrounds in that we were both raised in a very religious household and purity culture, and got married young and divorced and all of those things. So, I've been really excited to talk to you just because we have similar stories, but also because of your expertise in this area. And I just love your approach to sexuality and the education that we can improve these things and have these conversations. And it doesn't have to be taboo.
It doesn't. And okay, so question for you right off the bat, because I was talking with a client about this yesterday, this idea of when we came out of, right, these restrictive environments where there were gaps when it came to our understanding of ourselves as sexual humans. Was there ever a point where you felt alone, where you felt like I am the only one who must be this far behind, who must not know? Did you ever experience that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or like you just didn't have the right education to even know. I mean, I didn't know how to touch myself. I didn't know how to get to that orgasm and what that should even truly feel like. I just knew there was this holy grail called the orgasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, same. Folks will always say, because of your purity culture upbringing, how did you learn to self-pleasure, to masturbate? And I taught myself, no lie, to masturbate because I had never known that women even could do this. I was always told this was a man's issue.
Right.
When my now happily gay ex-husband would be asleep beside me, and after 6 months of no touch, no affection, no sexual intimacy of any kind, I was starved for touch. Yeah. And I was this close to just having an affair with any man on the street simply because I felt like void. I felt like a nothingness. And then so I really sat with myself and said, I think it's either you teach yourself to masturbate or break all of the values that you actually hold to, which are not to celebrate deceit and secrecy and things like that. Like that never felt like me. And it was a wild experience to go, I've never done this.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm doing this beside what I was told would be the perfect place for sexual encounters. And I've never felt more alone. But yeah, I asked you because I think the most common thing I hear is that in some way we are the one who is missing the information, right? It becomes such an isolatory experience of everybody else must know. I'm the one who doesn't. I'm the one who's broken. There are so many scripts, beliefs, narratives that exist out there about the sex other people are having.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we see it in movies and we see it in
Yeah.
porn and we see all these things. My kids are older teenagers and, watching them grow as teenagers and having access to things like when we were kids, this was magazines that you had to get through the the cellophane wrapper to see things if your Uncle Tommy didn't have them or whatever, and now it's just there. And I try to remind these kids, like, that's not real sex. And you can't base your thoughts of sexuality and sexual experiences on fake stuff.
Mm-mm.
Luckily, we are in a generation now where that openness and that conversation, and granted, what we do for a living allows those conversations. But that was not in my household where I grew up. I was told, you wait until marriage and don't tell me what you do with your boyfriends. And all of a sudden on your wedding night, you're supposed to be a sex goddess and know exactly what to do and how to do it and do it frequently. Because that's what you're supposed to do when you're married.
Do it frequently, have a great time. Also, these weird messages about your husband, the person with the penis, is going to want it all the time. You're never going to want it, but you're going to have to give it. Just these wild types of scripts of who your body belongs to, who sex is even for, who pleasure is for. This high emphasis on procreation as the most holy view of sex. And that
and not pleasure.
Not pleasure.
Especially our pleasure.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Some client was telling me yesterday about the pillow under the hips technique to, in essence, like, right? And I was like, all of a sudden it came out that they are always doing that. They are always getting to bed and they are always putting a pillow under their hips. And I said, it is not that a pillow under the hips or a sex wedge, it is not that a prop to lift the body in a certain way is a bad thing. That could be a very good thing. But looking at you as a human and knowing your partner, I think that might be actually increasing the pain. And there was such a script. And the pillow under the hips in the certain book that this person is referencing was to make the vagina more accessible to the person with the penis. Right? The pleasure emphasis, the focus of who sex was for, again, is for the person with the penis and sometimes to aid in procreation. I mean, just wild, wild, especially now knowing what we know about science and the sexual drive of women and what they are desirous of, and that we were just told a lot of hogwash.
Right. And wild. If you do want to procreate, it's a hell of a lot easier for a woman to get pregnant if she orgasms.
Right.
Like, could we just bring that home, please? Women deserve orgasms. A lot of them.
It's just, and that is so a part of our anatomy, right? And that we are more multi-orgasmic than a person with a penis, or refractory periods are so different. Just the amount of, when I was in school, learning about how much was willfully withheld from me, that was scientific and medically accurate, that was just never told to me, that instead I was given these moral guidelines that were fine and everybody gets to develop their own sexual values. I am here for it. But when that is all we receive, it's like a part of the story. Yeah. And so not to know the orgasmic potential in my body, not to know about how the vaginal canal tenses and balloons and grows and expands to make way for what it desires, not that something should just be thrusted inside of it, right? Just basic anatomy.
Yes. It's interesting. I had a 31-year-old guy come into my clinic the other day and tell me that he thinks he's having erection and orgasm issues because when he climaxes, it takes him 2 to 3 hours now to be able to get another erection. And in my head, I'm giggling like, yeah, dude, it's your refractory period. Wait another 20, 30 years. It's going to be a day or two. Like,
yes.
But you forget that we used to not know these things.
And this is the type of information that, if not willfully withheld, it enables us to make informed decisions, enable us to celebrate our bodies no matter the age, right? The amount of ageism that lives in our sexual scripts too, where there's nothing wrong with you if you need a refractory period of 2 hours. That's beautiful, right? In that time, cuddle, have beautiful conversations, make a meal, watch a movie, have some fun. I tell clients all the time that sex is not everything. It is just a part of everything. Yeah. And here is a pure example. Right? This is a beautifully normal refractory period. And if we know this about ourselves, then we're like, let's go make some breakfast.
Right.
If we don't know this, it starts to become this shame spiral in our minds. And I am thankful that you and I exist, but I always tell my clients, my goal would be for none of us to even need to exist, because you just know how inherently perfect you are and unique as a sexual being. All of our bodies are so different too. Yes. There's not some right way. And again, shame on porn and shame on this entertainment view of sex that we have. Not every penis looks the same. Not every vulva looks the same.
Right.
And Yes. Preach it.
Yes, and not every body reacts the same. So what worked with your last partner might not work with this partner, and there should not be shame around, "Hey, could you put more pressure here? Could you touch here? Could you do this, that?" Because that's what works for me. I shouldn't have shame telling my partner that, and he or she, your partner should not feel bad when you're telling them those things. They should be excited. Like, "Yes, tell me how to get you off. Tell me what makes you feel best, because that's my goal here." My goal is for both of us to achieve our highest levels.
You know, what's interesting is this leads me to exactly what started this work for me. So
Mhm.
after my divorce, when I lost my family and my community and my church and blah, 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 and I was alone in this tiny little basement apartment, I realized, okay, I'm no longer a virgin. So does this make me a whore?
Ugh,
Because the
yes.
only two ideas of female sexuality that I had been presented were the
Mhm.
virgin and the whore, right? The good, obedient, submissive wife who has the type of sex that is allowed, or the whore. And so it was there in that basement apartment that I was like, wait a second. I don't know if I even know what I like, right? To be
Yeah.
able to say something like that. And I had vague memories of my dear, now we have repaired our relationship. It's beautiful, ex-husband asking me at certain times, what do you want? And I deeply believed that that was his job. It was his job to know, right? So I began thinking, wait a second, what would have happened if I had known my own body? What would have happened if I had known what I desired, what I liked, what brought me pleasure? And what if this precious ex-husband of mine and I could have figured out much earlier that this was not his cup of tea?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have that have been nice for
Right?
everybody, right?
Yeah.
If I had taken that responsibility off of his shoulders, then it was there that I started to realize, oh, I think I've been lied to. I think that I was supposed to have figured this out.
Yeah.
This is not only my responsibility, it is my right to know my own body. And
Yes.
whoa, what if this creator created this pleasurable
Yeah.
piece of my body that is literally just designed for pleasure?
Right.
And what if I have some work to do that before I join with lovers? Yes, you know what? Maybe actually I could have consensual sexual encounters that are not with inside this marriage bed. But
Right.
what if I cease putting the responsibility on my lovers to know what to do? What if that's a big part that got jumbled, was my own accountability for myself, my body, and then it just began to spiral. I thought, I think I have a lot more accountability to start taking for
And
my life.
empowerment.
Yes.
How empowering is it to know your body and what works for you and makes you feel good and relieves your stress and all of those things? Because let's face it, orgasms and intimacy are not just a part of a relationship, but they are a part of our physical well-being, our mental well-being. Like you said, it's not everything, but it is a part of everything.
Everything. And so that is, I mean, yes, right? It started to become a part of my like evening ritual for myself of, okay, what does it look like to get home from a long work day and shower my body and lotion my body and bring my body to orgasm for me? And oh my goodness, wow, look at what I start to think I deserve. And boy, oh boy, did that start to feed this empowerment loop of no, things are going to have to be better than this life that I am living here. There was this moment when my screen door was the only thing like between me and the outside air, and the wind chimes were going, and I was cleaning something off the floor in this tiny nothingness apartment. But I had just had this great orgasm. And I thought, if this is the worst it gets, I am penniless. I have lost everything. I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Because this is the bar now, this
Right.
bar of happiness where I am playing music and I am singing and I am joyful and I am full of pleasure. This is the bar. And you know what? This is pretty okay. Like this is just okay. And everything needs to be a value add. And so yes to empowering. And oh, wow. Yeah. I think that if we had had these integral pieces of information given to us as young people, not from, the porn magazines we had to find, or not from these types of things, from sex positive adults in our lives. From great texts that were age appropriate and developmentally sound. Wow. This could have been a game changer. Really,
Total
truly.
game changer. Yeah.
And it was then too that I also thought, and also I know me well enough that I'm not just going to go on a rampage of sex throughout my community. Like that's not me. And then I also thought, I thought maybe everybody's kind of like that. Maybe everybody is able to self-determine their own sexual behaviors. And I was also told that sex was like this ravening beast, right?
Yeah.
That it was the slippery slope that you were going to slide down, not, no, you can make informed decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because, being married, divorced, single, all the different things, phases of life, I've had those phases where I wanted to date people of every different background and every different demographic and things like that so I could figure out what I wanted. I've
Yes.
been in the marriage where my husband was deployed and things like that, so I didn't have sex for months on end. So all these different gamuts, and it took a while being single to really explore myself and not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and
Yes.
spiritually find myself and what is it that I truly desire for myself, by myself, and also with a partner. And once I started to figure that out, who I allowed into my life and into my safe space totally changed. And what I was willing to tolerate changed. And it's interesting because it's like an evolution, right? So
Yes.
you're like, okay, these are some red flags, but I'm going to make some excuses and I'm going to see, like, okay, well, maybe this is okay or maybe that's okay. And then you get to the point where you're like, no, it's not. It's just not okay. And nobody with red flags is going to live in here anymore. Like, it's so crazy, but it is. It's this total evolution. And it just coincides with my evolution of my own sexuality and what I want from life sexually as well as in a relationship.
Question. How important do you think that time, that evolution
Mm.
time was for you?
I mean, I don't think I can even put into words how important it was. It is exponentially changed the trajectory of my life because I now know who I am. And I don't think I would be doing this podcast. I don't think I would be where I am in life and with the partner I have in life and all of those things without having taken that time. And you're right, it was lonely at times, but it was so important to the rest of my life to take those few years and figure my shit out.
The reason I ask is that I hope that my audience who hears this and clients of mine listen really specifically to that. I have a lot of precious souls right now that are entering into the beginning of the
Mhm.
evolution. And I say, and this is why I wanted to hear from you, that I couldn't put a price tag on it.
No.
Like if I hadn't had that time of getting clear through experimentation,
Mm.
it took, it was
Yeah.
exactly the same of like, okay, giving myself permission to do this,
Mhm.
right? Taking away the shame and the guilt and the blame and saying, guess what? I get to. I
Yeah.
get to try that. I get to do this. I get to do that. And then sitting with, and how does that feel in my body now?
Mhm.
Right? What red flag am I no longer okay with?
Mhm.
And then am I okay with a little bit more of loneliness while I wait, becoming a little choosier? That process is why I am who I am today.
Mhm.
And I think it can sound woo woo or it can sound like, I don't know. I don't trust you. And so I just thought, I wonder
Yeah.
if every woman who is who she is today has a similar type of period of life where we got to trial and error, we got to experiment, and we
Mhm.
got to really sift through who it is that we want to be, why we want to be that, what
Mhm.
actually feels good to us. Because yes, we're also unique. Right?
Yes.
What we like is different. What we
Mhm.
prefer sexually is different. What we prefer intimately, what we prefer relationally, romantically. These are they're ours and we get to
Right.
decide. And yet I know that the the desire is almost to rush that process. It's like,
Yeah,
but I want to
it
be on
is.
the other side. I get it. But I was like, I bet there's a
Yeah.
similar thing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really do need to sit in it and you need to give yourself grace. Okay, I chose to have sex with that person last night and it wasn't great. And now I know, check. I'm not going to do that anymore with that type of person or whatever. Or, this happened on a date and ooh, I really don't like the way they talked to the waiter or they were so disrespectful and I don't want that quality in a partner. Or, there's so many different things and sex stuff included, but it was such an evolution for me and I can't emphasize enough how important that phase of my life was and how it has completely changed the trajectory of my life and for so much better, for so much better.
It's making me think of two things. One, the getting comfortable with your no, getting more and
Yes.
more comfortable with our no, because no is such an important part of the relational experience and the sexual experience. And so to be able to go, when we see like the little bit of disrespect with the person in the service industry, no, not me, right?
Yep.
Or the meh, this is mass sex. I'm not interested in no sex. I mean, that sex. No, that's a no for me. Then also I'm thinking of Betty Dodson's quote that says, the first principle of pleasure is the freedom of personal choice. And being able to make an embodied choice and understand and have the empowered understanding that we get to do that forever is life changing. I'll never forget that one of my dearest friends, when I got engaged to my now partner, went out to dinner with me and she's also divorced. And she said, are you sure? Like you've just, right? Like, are you sure? And I looked her in the eyes and I said, no, And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, guess what? I am sure of one thing, and that is my own ability to choose what is best for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I am not sure. I don't know what he'll do. People have psychotic breaks. I have no idea. He could choose, he could change, he could become, I could change, I could become. You know what? I will never, ever forsake myself.
Yeah. And it took me round 2 to figure that out. So I was married to my kid's dad. We got married when I was 19, ended up divorced. And I don't ever publicly go into that story because my kids don't need to be dealt with in that way. But I didn't know how to be single. I didn't know who I was. He was my high school sweetheart. We got married when I was 19 years old. Oh my God, I have a 19-year-old daughter and I can't even imagine her getting married right now.
Like you were a baby. Developmentally, you were a baby. And it is just, I just want to hug her, right? I just want to hug her.
I want to go back and hug her too.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then we got divorced when I was 28. I didn't know. I went straight from my parents' house to my husband's house. I didn't know how to be single. I was afraid to pay bills. I was all of it. And so I met someone 4 months after my divorce, said all the right things, did all the right things, made me feel cared for, and we got married. And that was the dumbest thing I could have done because I didn't take that time for myself to figure out who the hell I was, what I wanted out of life, any of that. And of course that marriage failed for a multitude of reasons, but biggest reason was he was not my person and he was not what I wanted in life. And so I had to figure it out after the second time around.
You get to, you get all the grace and all the permission.
Absolutely. Yep. So then I did. I took that time and I had my evolution and I went through all those phases and it completely changed my life. And what I allow in my life now, like what you were saying is, you're right. I have no idea what my future holds or what my partner's going to do, what I'm going to do, whatever. But I can completely agree with you that I will not let certain things happen in my life and I will not let myself go down certain paths. I will always choose myself.
Listen to some audiobook. I don't know. Right around the time that I met my now partner, and circling back, big hugs to everything you said. And I am so excited for my clients and my audience to hear this episode because I just could not emphasize more how important it is to love ourselves in our humanness and to understand that it is not this striving for perfection. And
right.
It's fake. Yeah. It's not real.
It's not. And I stayed longer than I should have because I didn't want to be the girl with 2 divorces. And I had to get over that and realize I also don't want to be miserable the rest of my life. And being miserable the rest of my life was worse to me than being the girl with 2 divorces. And I got to tell you, it has been 7 years since my second divorce. Not a single person has been like, oh my God, you had 2 divorces. Like, I'm not going to be your friend. Like, not a single person, not anyone I've dated, not anything, because we've all had multiple long-term relationships. I just married both of mine.
It's for let's just take an efficient
I just
route.
thought that legal commitment was real important.
And it's just interesting. What I was going to bring up is developmental ages, right? So you emphasize that 19 and you're divorced at 28. And what we see so often is that when we get married in that stage of adolescence, my friends, this is adolescence, right? Yeah. Which is why I wanted to hug that little Stephanie, is that what happens is that we kind of freeze in essence at that developmental age of awareness. And so we get out at 28 and we're not 28. We're 19. We are 19. And so my clients will be like, why is it that I ran after that person and they drove away, right? And I'm like, because baby girl, you are still an adolescent. Yes. It's okay. Absolutely met my now ex-husband at 18. Yeah, better believe. But when we were divorced, I was around 33, which is an interesting stage of development, which is, right? So this 33, 35, we are coming into a oh my goodness, I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. So
that's
around
so
this,
funny because I was 34 when I got my second divorce.
See? And so
that's crazy.
It's just, I have goosebumps. Again, this is the part of the science and the medical understanding of development. We can't forget this. Right? This age, we have these evolutionary pulls in our body to be tethered, be attached, procreate, all of these things. And we can't forget about it. You were just right on schedule, my friend.
Apparently.
You're just right on schedule. Just
telling you, my 40s are amazing.
Right? That's what I tell everyone. I'm like, my God, I turned 40 in a couple months and I couldn't be more excited. People are like, you're weird. I'm like, no, I am. Get me there. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say was I heard some audiobook right before I met my partner. Again, I was 36. So this is an interesting time. That was all about choosing partnership. And she would just say, repeat after me. I choose partnership. She would say the reason this is so important is that we can also unchoose partnership, that this is a daily choice and a mutual investment of all parties. Remembering that because we are in this partnership of choice, there is work to be done. Doesn't need to feel like heavy, unbearable work, but there's work to be done. There's a way in which we want to show up. There is a certain choice that we are making. I often say we not only choose the partner, we choose their attachment patterns. We choose their nervous systems. We choose their understanding of romance. We choose their childhoods. And my biggest hope is that every person choosing partnership is also choosing to work on themselves in any way, shape, and form, because that's their job. Adrienne Marie Brown says there's your work, there's my work, there's our work. And I am here for that. But I just thought, we've already been speaking of the empowerment that comes from knowing ourselves sexually. But I also think that choice piece, Dr. Betty Martin says the choosing is far more important than the doing. And it's like, Stephanie, the second time around, the third time around was learning this beautiful thing. And yes, nobody ever cares. Most humans just want us to be happy.
Right.
It's like they have enough of their own life to worry about. Yes. And yes, when we're trying to, control our behaviors because of what other people will think about us, that's doomsday every time.
It is. It is.
Every time.
I knew the day I married my second husband that I should not be marrying him.
Wow.
But I did it because, we had a destination wedding. Everybody did this. This was expected of me. This was, I knew I should not have done that. And I didn't have enough self-awareness and self-confidence, maybe is the right word, to choose me.
Yes.
And I just went with it. And I still ended up divorced because it was not the right decision for me. And I don't, I don't regret it. I have forgiven myself. I've done all of those things, right? Yes. I was very angry at myself for a while, but I've worked through that, and I've gotten myself to where I'm okay. Because again, you don't get to where you are now and who you are now without having gone through your shit.
What do you think some of the biggest lessons were from that second marriage? Like, what do you think it taught you?
It's a great question. I think the biggest thing was to listen to myself and my intuition, that I am right. I know what's right for me, and I need to listen to me, because I didn't. And I knew wholeheartedly that I was making the wrong choice, and I just tried to make it work. And I think part of that was the idea of having another failed relationship. That I had already failed my first one. Right. And it's not failed.
It's
and
not.
We know that now, right?
Yes,
like,
right.
We can understand that. But that's where my mind was at that time. I was the first divorce in my entire family, like aunts, uncles, everybody. I was the first divorce. And so then now I'm going to have two. I'm going to be failed again. Like, it was just so ridiculous. So I think that self-awareness, that I know me best and I need to listen to me and choose me regardless of what other people think of me.
Mic drop. That piece of the intuition, I think sometimes one of the greatest lessons we can learn is ignoring the intuition and seeing what happens. It's like how toddlers are like, what happens if I shut my fingers in this drawer? Right? And they're like, then screaming and crying, and we're like watching them, and it's like, they knew, but it's that what happens when and I think on the way to learning to quote unquote trust our intuition is sometimes that listening, going against it, because we have free will over our bodies. We get to do whatever the heck we want, my friends. We get to. And then seeing, wow, and that is the result. Right? It is the same thing developmentally as when a toddler closes their fingers in the drawer of what happens when and then, yes, having the bravery and the courage that it takes to say, okay, now I'm choosing me. Now I know. Yeah. In school, we were talking with a supervisor once, and we were saying, what happens when, we've shared with a student or a client some piece of sexuality information, and then new research comes out and it's now updated. What do we do? Like, oh no, am I a liar? And she said, no. One of the biggest things I ever learned was to use this phrase. I used to believe, and then I learned, and now I think.
I love that.
Isn't that amazing, especially with stories like ours?
Yeah.
Like, you and I went into these previous highly committed relationships wherein others would have just dated. Right. We chose something slightly more permanent and fancy, but we went in believing something. We used to believe, fill in the blank, but then we learned through our own lived experiences, which is a beautiful teacher. Yes. And now we think, and now we are wiser for it. We are better adds to our overall communities. You now have this podcast because of it, right? There is so much that we bring to this life that we get to live because of what we learned along the way. And that is not shameful. And sadly, I think it has its roots inside of purity culture origins and inside of religiosity, of this idea of absolute truth, of this idea of right and wrong, good and bad, evil, sin, all of these things that we as a culture have gotten so uncomfy with the process of failure and learning through it, and of that not ascribing some like moral value to women like you and I, right? Like that don't have scarlet letters on our backs, but I was afraid I would. I was absolutely afraid of that what would happen when. And I will say from personal experience, if anyone out there is like, but I do feel like I'm being ostracized. I was removed from friend groups. I was after my first marriage. I lost a lot of the community that I thought I belonged to, but my belonging in that season was contingent upon believing and behaving certain things. And the moment I ceased to behave in the way that they wanted me to, I did lose that belonging. And that was unfortunate. But what I've learned is that, the good ones, they don't care. They'll be so proud of you for choosing yourself and for choosing to grow and become.
Yeah. And even, my parents, which is where I was raised and everything, they are so supportive of where I've become in life and what I'm doing and all of these things. And they might not listen to every single episode because my mom doesn't want to listen to, like, for example, the episode about fisting. But
yes, fisting.
But it's one of those things where they are truly proud of me, and they have seen my evolution as well and love me. And you are going to lose people along the way, but those people weren't your people. They're not your forever people.
No. And I love normalizing this idea that it's not even bad for people to come in our lives and out of our lives, and that those friendships were valuable. And they were sweet. And this idea of compulsive forever monogamy that so many of us fell into as well is one of the ways in which that tendril wraps around us, that forever is the best. And forever is not the best. There are some folks who we meet along the way, and they were sweet and they were wonderful and they're meant to come in and go away. And that is okay. It doesn't make them less valuable. And it's such an indicative of all of the culture that we were raised in. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so fascinating to watch the conversations that we are allowed to have now that would never have come across conversation and when we were younger.
Never. It's so funny. One of the things that I do with many of my clients is these personal sexuality timelines. And so we'll discuss, their parents' comfortability with one another romantically, or what their parents said to them about sexuality, expression, identity, orientation, sexual behaviors, all of these types of things. Most of the time, 95% of the time, there was not a single conversation. It was something like what I received, which was the night before my wedding. And my mother said, take care of your husband's needs and everything else will be okay. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, when he's gay, that's not going to work very well. Didn't work.
I'm not sure that you can give him what he needs.
Yeah, I never was able to. It's really sad for both of us, right?
Right.
So that I hear so much, just don't get anyone pregnant or just don't get pregnant. That's it. Even inside of the sex ed that so many of us got, right? It was abstinence only, or it was terrifying you, some type of fear mongering to keep you from getting sexually transmitted infections. It wasn't pleasure centered. It didn't center the fact that actually, if you knew what was pleasurable, you might self-select. You might be like, no, like, sorry, buddy, my masturbatory practice is far better than this.
Yes.
You take you and your penis far away.
Right.
Right. Or if we center pleasure, wow, that might help us figure out orientation much sooner.
Yeah.
Right. If we're centering, that wasn't good for me. I wonder what it would be like to be with someone of my same gender. I wonder what it would be like if I gave myself permission to love all genders. I wonder if I feel too stuck in this box.
Yeah.
The world becomes really interesting when we're given more information, but you're exactly right. What's been really beautiful to me, speaking of our parents, is this idea that intent does not negate impact, right? The impact on us was great. And yet most parents did not intend to harm their children. Right. They were just so uncomfortable themselves because of their own incomplete understanding of sex and bodies and the bodies of others. This was not like, oh, let me go traumatize my young
Right.
people.
Right.
No, I know my parents had been raised without any guidelines
Yeah.
and so had some traumatizing sexual experiences, both of them. And so when they found their way to religion gave them this kind of script that was new on the market of I kiss dating goodbye and this idea of courtship again. And they were like,
Yep.
this will help our baby girl not
Mhm.
go through the pain we went through. And I think in this process of forgiveness that anyone who's done a little bit of like self work understands that forgiveness is so empowering for ourselves to go, maybe my parents were doing the best they could.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough, and I have some work to do. But
Yeah.
their intent was not to harm. Their
Mhm.
intent was maybe to keep me safe and to
Yeah.
protect me. And that is such a biological urge too.
It is. And I think too with the forgiveness is I've when I was younger, I always thought forgiveness was for the other person.
Yes.
And it's
Same.
not. It's so much for me. I don't need to carry around that anger and that guilt or whatever forgiveness is totally personal.
Totally. And when you look at like research on autoimmune diseases in women,
Mhm.
and you look at how much we are carrying,
Yeah.
one of the things I work with my clients and female bodies on is, baby girl, we need to let that go because it's literally going to make you sick.
Yeah.
This forgiveness, yes, is for us. It's like cutting all of these ties of all of these folks who, yes, harm. But yeah, I was raised similarly that this idea of forgiveness is like, as far as the East is from the West, it is for the other person. And
Yes.
when I realized that forgiveness does not equal pardoning,
Mhm.
condoning, or excusing behavior, forgiveness is for me. I can forgive without ever entering into a relationship with a person again, too.
Mhm.
When I realized
Yes.
that, I could forgive and have all this ooey gooey space in my body, but have a boundary, a strict
Yep.
relational boundary with someone that I don't need to re-engage in relationship was also something that I had not grown up being taught. I had grown up being taught that forgiveness was almost this like whitewashing, this
Mhm.
cleansing of the harm done towards me. And so
Mhm.
it was the thing that led me to stay in an abusive relationship for a very long time because they would apologize. I would forgive them and then I
Mhm.
would re-enter. I had never been taught about a cycle of abuse. I didn't
Yeah.
know that this was a thing that happened because I had just been taught to forgive, to forgive, to
Yep.
forgive. But when I realized, that exact thing of no,
Yeah.
forgiveness is for me. And it starts to allow empathy to rush in. And it
Mhm.
starts to allow me to have big, thick boundaries or little micro boundaries
Huh?
that allow me to exist inside of spaces that feel good for me. And then also to go, again, that choice piece, not okay. I can forgive you because that's for me. But no, doesn't condone the behavior that just
Right.
existed.
Right. And I think you brought up boundaries. That was such a learning experience for me too. Oh my
Oh,
God. You
yeah.
mean I can tell people no and I can say, we can do this, but here's my line or whatever boundary that is. And not just real, just in a partnered relationship, but in all of my relationships at work, with my parents, with my kids, with boundaries are amazing.
They're incredible. I work a lot with this modality of the wheel of consent, which is a
Mm.
thing developed by Dr. Betty Martin. And she often teaches that we all have a domain. So you have a domain. I have a domain. Every aspect of human relationship should be, in an ideal world, a negotiation of the third domain, the
Hmm.
space between us. This concept continues to blow my mind, even to this day, right? That it is my domain that matters. It is the things inside of my domain that I have a right to and a responsibility for. And then I can extend an offer
Mhm.
or a request to another person. And
Yeah.
then they can decide whether or not they are interested, right, in playing in that third domain with me.
Mhm.
But that my boundaries exist to protect me. And it actually is good for other people for me to know to the limit that I extend, right? To be able to draw this thick box around me.
Huh.
And it was in my embodied intimacy program that we were talking about attachment, and that many of us developed our primary understanding of attachment inside of our relationships with our parents, which makes sense. But many of our parents were caretaking for us. And so they were, in essence, reaching through our domain. Right?
Mhm.
They were, in essence, breaking through that boundary because there's a part of that that's necessary when you're caring for an infant who is not able to
Mhm.
care for themselves. But it is a necessary part of development again that, yeah, Stephanie and I skipped over when we got married so young, right? To shore up our boundaries around
Yeah.
ourselves, to say, this is where I end and where you begin.
Mhm.
And it's so crucial because then everybody is more comfy. Our friends are more comfy. When they ask us, hey, do you want to go out for drinks tonight? And we have the ability to check in with ourselves and go, do I want to go out for drinks tonight? instead of only thinking about, well, I have to say yes because I haven't seen her in 3 weeks. And what is
Right.
going to happen to her if she, what? No, the
Yeah.
question was, do you want? And yeah, that idea glossed right over. It was
Yeah.
always this award system placed upon the person who could serve, right? Better is he who serves than those who receives. The giving over the receiving again and again and again. And when we don't have an understanding of that domain, of that boundary, of our limits, of our capacities, it's dangerous for all people. And yes, harms friendships, harms work. Really, I mean, it has transformed how I built a business. It has transformed, right? This idea of my job to know how much I can give to this, that, or the other thing. My job to know how many clients I can see in a day. My job to know what I need to replenish myself to then love on my clients.
Yeah. I know. It's
things we learned.
incredible. It's incredible. I've heard, like the love bucket, right?
Yes.
If you don't fill your own bucket, you can't fill others and things like that. And it's so true. If I am drained or overcommitted or whatever, I can't give of myself to anyone to the degree that I should. But if I prioritize myself, which is not selfish, if I prioritize myself, then I give the best version of myself to everyone.
Again and again.
Yeah.
Right. And when I think of sexual pleasure, seeing as, that is a big thing that I talk about all day.
Right.
This idea of being selfish often comes up because so many of us, especially in female bodies, have been conditioned to give sex to another. But when I teach folks and I explain that pleasure, orgasm is a physiological response within our own bodies, and then we don't actually give or receive pleasure. Pleasure is happening within us, that it is a selfish act. And so again, it is something that we have a responsibility to, that if we can sit in, no, this is my job. I need to be able to understand what I need to give myself. And that I need to be able to say, oh, you know what, actually, I really want that. And interestingly enough, that's desire. And so whether or not it is a partnered desire or something we give ourselves, when we can get more comfortable in wanting, being quote unquote selfish, it is there that we understand that we're people more full of integrity, not less. Because I can say I want, and then somebody else can go. The number one complaint I think I hear between heterosexual couples is, I want her to want sex. I want her to want to be with me. And I'm like, well, then number one, let's go back to developing a world in which women are allowed to want, that we celebrate women's selfishness. Because I'm like, guess what, dude? You've been told since you were tiny. The research says between 7 and 10 years old is when people in male bodies realize that sex is their job, that sex is for them, and they have to be this kind of sexual being. 7 to 10 years old. That's so young.
So young.
So young. And yet, from that time also, young girls are learning to be human givers, right? So if we want her to want, let's start to develop a home culture, work cultures, all of these things where women are celebrated for wanting. And we can do that inside a partnership. It's so cool. Right?
Yeah.
Start to literally cheer for her. My partner knows he cheers for me when I get angry, when I put up a boundary. All of these things are helping to establish a relationship container in which my wants are treasured, cherished, delicious, because then it is less risky to say, this is what I want in a sexual encounter. When we're naked, this is what I want. Right? Again, research shows over and over again that women are the far more sexual beings. They're the ones with the greater desire. They're the ones who crave adventure and risk and taboo. And so if that's the case, we just need to lift them up and be tell me your kinkiest desire. Tell me your greatest fantasy. Tell me these things that are turning you on erotically. It's not, you don't need to be ashamed. Tell me your dirty erotic mind. I want to hear. When we can start to do that, oh my God, the world is our oyster.
Right.
So much fun.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I love everything that we've talked about today as far as our own self-discovery and self-evolution, the setting boundaries and being able to explore with your partner, to celebrate each other. I think it's just, this is the tip of the iceberg. I feel like we could talk all day on this.
Seriously.
But I really appreciate your conversation today and being here. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yeah, thanks. This was so much fun. Just
so much fun.
Have just a rolling conversation about pleasure and so many things. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we will, in the show notes, I will have links to Lauren. So you guys can get in touch with her if you want to see her work or work with her. That would be amazing. Any plugs you want to do? I know you have podcasts and your job and everything.
all the juiciness. Now go to the links in the show notes. I do have a podcast with my partner where we talk about so many of the effects of purity culture before and how we are building a conscious chosen partnership now. So you can search it, the partnership podcast, on any of the platforms. And yeah, if you want to work with me, go to sexedforyou.com/free consult.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you listening. Thanks again, Lauren, for being here, and go have some fun between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthe.sheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthe.sheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and go have some fun between the sheets.